Hi, my name is Ron Shaffer. I'm a producer, mixer, engineer, and welcome to beautiful Atlantic West Studios. I'm going to do a tutorial on how to create Aux-sends and returns, and why you would want to do that as opposed to putting a reverb directly on a channel. There are a lot of advantages to creating a send and return, and also the difference between a pre and post fader and the advantage of those. So let's get into it. And first, let me say this is one of my first tutorials, so it might be a little clunky and sound a little funny or whatever, but I think you will get the idea and you know, be able to use this in your own sessions. So you want to create a reverb on, let's say, the snare track. First, let's just hear this track. And just for example, let's make a reverb on the snare. First, you go to the send section and go to a bus. You want to bus it to an open one. So let's pick 17 and 18. And the send fader comes up. Nice, right? Then you create a new track, stereo aux input track. You can do that by track new. Okay, then you want to put this on bus 17 and 18. So this is sending from 17 and 18 and returning into 17 and 18. So let's just deal with that right now. As I bring this fader up, you're basically getting the same signal in here. But this is where we want to put the effect. So in the insert, you're going to insert the effect. Let's use just a reverb. I like the R Renaissance reverb just for an example. Let's make it something obvious with a big pre-delay, a little high end, and there you go. It's a big hall. And you bring the fader down, effect goes away, and you bring it up, and you start to hear the effect. This, to me, is the best way to create, you know, an auxiliary send for reverbs and delays and stuff, because you have the most control, and you can make, like, let's say this is the big room, so you could put the snare, you know, the toms, let's say, and like vocals or something, and you just would, on those individual tracks, like, well, let's just say the kick drum, for example, you can just use the same bus. Obviously it's going to the same effect, and you have individual control over each track that you put onto this effect, right? I see a lot of guys, they'll put, you know, they'll put a reverb on each track, and it's pretty much the same reverb, and you're basically wasting DSP or memory, you know, your computer memory, and also it's a little bit hard to navigate when you're mixing, and also, as I'll get to in a minute, the control is definitely not as precise as using the fader sends, and you can mute it, and it's just very convenient to have it this way. Well, let me show you that. All right, so let's take this off and let's put a reverb on let's put the same reverb. I'll copy the settings. I could drag this over, but because it's not a stereo sound, I want to create a new one. And paste. Okay, so here is just the snare, and I've got this reverb on, right? Let's mute it. And using it this way, where you have the reverb in the channel, you do have control with the mix, the wet and dry. But like I said, it's okay. Let's say you get it sounding good. You know, you're in the tracking, and the producer, the drummer, or whatever says there's too much reverb on the snare, and you go into the reverb, and now you gotta sit in here and find it with this. I just find that these mix wet dries aren't quite as precise, and also I'll show you in a second what else is happening. I mean, that's cool. You can do that. You can do that. But I'm telling you, if you have this different reverbs Yeah, and then let's say you want that same sound on another track. You gotta, copy it over. And it's just, I don't know, to me it's just so ridiculous. This doesn't make sense to me. And here's why as well. Like, let's say you want to turn down the snare now. Okay, goes down nice, and the reverb goes down with it. But listen to the difference. Let's see, let's mute this and activate the one from the send. Let's try to match them. That's pretty close. But here's what's happening. This is what I hear when I do this, especially on vocals, is that I hear the dry signal and then I hear the reverb. So you hear the crack and the punch, and you add the reverb, and you still hear the crack and the punch, and the reverb is sort of behind it. That's really what you want, I think. And when you do it when it's on the insert here, is you lose a little bit of that attack and crack and punch. It's as if it pushes it back slightly, softens it, which I think can be a really cool thing if something's mic'd too close. Like, for instance, I did this session where there was these guys sent in horn tracks and they were recorded really closely mic'd, and I just couldn't get them to sit right in the track, and I did put reverbs on the actual track themselves and did this, and it helps sync it back as if it was mic'd a little further back from the horn, and it's great on background vocals sometimes. But here's an even better way than doing that, is to use a pre-fader send. It's a similar thing as to having it on the insert, and I'll show you what happens here with this. Let's go out. So this is how we have it normally, not pre, which is automatically post fader. So when you bring down the fader, you're not sending anything out to the send and to the reverb. So let's put it on pre-fader. What do you think happens? Let's give it, there's the send. If you turn it down, you're still hearing the reverb because it's before the fader. So this has no effect on what's getting sent out to it. So it's all here. So this has a similar effect of pushing something back. So let's say this is your volume of the snare, 6.2. And it's a little softer than doing it with post fader. Here's the control that I like. But if you're not getting, you want it to sync, you want the track that you're working on to sync back a little bit. Pre-fader is good. And you can turn it down and then give it some more effect. Right? And you can blend it easier than using an effect inside here and trying to get into the mix thing. And then if somebody says, hey, turn that down, now here's what you got to do. If you're using something with a pre-fader, you're probably going to want to have it individual. So let's do another thing. Track, new. Let's do a mono aux input. Here's my new aux input. Let's mute the reverb and create an aux-send. Let's pick a bus. I'm already using bus 7 for my aux return. So let's solo this. Here's my snare. 6.2. By the way, to get it precise, if when you're in the fader and you start moving it, if you hold Option and Apple, then you can I'm moving it really hard, and it goes by 0.1 increments, so you can get it exactly what you want to do. It's pretty cool, because otherwise when you're doing this, it jumps sometimes by 0.3 or 2 or 5 dBs. So see, I can't get it on 6.2, but as I'm moving the fader and I hold down those two keys, Option and Apple, I can now go in 0.1 increments. Cool. So I have this send going out, and here is where a pre-send is really good, because I want to distort this snare. I want to make it a little heavier. So I create an Aux-send, and I put on one of my favorite new plugins, the Shep 73, which I'm using to drive it and create a bit of distortion. And here it is. You don't really, let's crank it up. Oh, this one I'm not using as much as for distortion as body. Yeah, that's right. I'm using some low end. There's the highs I cut out. So yeah, I was just giving it some gut. Yeah, just giving it some beef. So what's going on here is this is going to be consistent. Once I get it set, this is going to be consistent, well, no matter what I do with the snare sound. So if I had it the other way around, post fader, when I bring the snare down, it's not hitting this sound as hard. Okay, and I want this to be consistent. This is my snare sound now, this. So that's my snare sound now, right? I like this. So now what you got to do is group the snares, make a new group, you know, call it snares. I already did this, so let me hide snares. And now when somebody says turn the snare drum down, I have a consistent sound. It's still getting hit hard, so I'm still getting a consistent, that same amount of juice going into that Shep 73, so that my effect and my snare sound is consistent. If I didn't do this, if I had it on post fader, or the normal way I say, and I did this, as I bring down the snares, this, I mean, besides the volume tab changing, but I'm not hitting this as hard, so I'm not getting this effect. I'm not getting the distortion as much as I would like. Notice the knead here. You know how hard you're hitting it. You know, so say it's hitting, you know, whatever, 0. That sounds good. I like it. Now somebody says, you want to turn the snare down a little bit, you know. So I'm in the mix. Okay, I'll turn it down, you know, dB or so. I still got my sound. Now if I was on post fader, see, I'm not hitting the knee or the Shep 73 as hard, and therefore I'm not getting the gain. And it's hard to. If you want to have a sound to make a sound, then using pre is good, because like I show you, as you move the fader, it doesn't affect what's getting hit. Now, as far as reverb goes, see now, oh, this one, the reverb, I want it on post fader. Alright, there's my silly, overly done, you know, reverb sound. Now they say turn the snare down. As I turn the snare down, I don't want the reverb to stay up like I do here. I want the reverb to come down, and it will, because it's after this fader. So it's just, that's basically really what I want to get into, is telling you about creating sends and returns, and why you would want to use pre or post fader, and also why you would or wouldn't want to use an effect inside a particular track itself. Okay, thank you. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye.